Hey guys, welcome to Indie Game Hustle. My name is Charles, and in this video, we're going to continue working with our character in adding new mechanics. We recently set up a jump mechanic and set up a run mechanic right here. And so the next thing we want to take a look at is how do we set up a crawling mechanic maybe. For our player, how would this work? So before we did it to where we're kind of toggling it. So if we hold down the button, you can run, and if you let go of the button, you stop running, and that feels pretty good. But for crawling, I felt my fingers would probably be doing some weird acrobatics on the keyboard, and I don't want to have to hold down the button in order to crawl. I think I would like to change his locomotion state to crawling, and then when I'm tired of crawling or when I don't need to crawl anymore, then he will just simply stop crawling by hitting the button again by turning it off. So I think we're going to do that. And in order to do that, we're going to have to do it with conditions. Okay. So the first thing I already know I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need a animation that shows the player actually crawling. Because right now it's easy to change it, when running, you're just kind of moving the player faster. And of course, we're going to make the run animation look cooler. But right now, all it's doing is taking his current run animation and making him move faster than what it is. But eventually, we're going to make it to where his run animation is actually like a sprint, and his regular run animation is his walk or slower animation is his standard run. So anyway, we'll get to that. But for now, what we're going to need is some more animations. And so I'm going to download a set of animations from the asset store that I really like, and I'm going to get those now. And the animations are going to be, I'm going to see if the package manager is going to allow me to do this. It's in my assets, and I believe the pack I'm looking for is called Everyday Motion Pack. Now, they do have a free pack here. I played with this a long time ago, but I recently kind of purchased it, and it has a few other things that we're going to definitely utilize. So I'm going to start here. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to purchase this. You can easily go into Miximo's website and utilize their animations, but right now I'm going to utilize these for this project, and I'll have a link in the description directly leading to this asset. So download it if you're going to download it, and then import it into your project. So I'm going to hit import. All right, and that's loaded. So now let's take a look at what it's giving us. Let's first determine what we need here. So in this case, let's see, I don't really want any scene files. I really just want the motions. I don't need the scene, so I'm going to take that off. I'm not sure if I'm going to need the controllers or anything like that. But you know what? Let's see. I'm going to keep everything here, and I'm just going to just leave off the scene. That's fine. Actually, this actually is not too bad. I think it'd be fine for me to just include everything here. So I'll just go ahead and bring everything in. Just some packages have a lot of things like scripting and stuff, and this doesn't have any scripting or anything. This is just standard stuff. So it's really just an animation pack with some models, of course, that come with it. And I could leave these off. Let's see here. Floors and props and that sort of thing. Let's see. I will probably just turn off the models. And are these all the animations? I believe this is it. And if that's the case, I don't need the scene. I don't need the models. I don't think I need this either. Let's see if we can just get the motions, and we'll go from there. How's that? So I'll just go ahead and import these items, and if it works, we'll rock with it. If not, we'll go back and put them in. And it may take a little bit of time for it to download, so we'll just go ahead and wait for that. All right, so it looks like it's installed everything, and I'll just hit import. Again, it's probably going to obviously say that there is some things to import, and it's going to check it again. And I typically do this all the time just to verify a couple things. And of course, it's going to say all those things, but it's going to show you that these are already there, so that's fine. You don't have to do that. So let's go ahead and close this, and let's just check in our project folders here to see what we got. All right, so we have the package here, Everyday Motion Pack, and in this pack, you see that we have some different motions. Of course, there's no models there, and that's fine. As you can see, that's there. What we're gonna do is go ahead and run the editor, run the render pipeline, check for any type of materials. So let's see, project materials, the universal, yep, proceed. And the animation should be good there. But here's what I'm going to do. Let's see, so you can see that's animations there. Those are pink. Don't know, that looks like the little Unity guy. Not sure why that's like that, but that's okay. What I'm going to do, because I'm wondering if I like to see the actual model, in this case, I'm probably going to delete this. And this is just showing you that we can delete it, and we can go delete. And I'm going to hit delete, and I'm going to re-import it again. And that's fine. And then I'm going to go back into the package manager and re-import it. And then I'm just going to do everything. And then it's just going to take a little bit of time, and I'll be right back. All right, so that's looks like it should be imported. Let me just double check though that I got everything that I intended. So I got the characters there, so that's fine. Let's run the check and see if that are correct. Their shaders and whatnot. So it might, it may not. Looks like it fixed a couple things. No big deal, because we don't really need that. That's fine. Let's see here. All right, yeah, it doesn't fix it, and that's fine. We can do a refresh. We can do, okay, that's fine. So we don't need that. We just need the motions anyway, so that's fine. What I will just go ahead and do then is take a look at the motions. And we have this here, and there's that. And so if we hit play, you can see that's kind of like a female idol, and that's pretty cool. We also have a female panting, or a male panting, so this is like a tired. And these animations work pretty good for us, I think, mainly because they're very stylistic, and this character's definitely got a style to it, so it could actually work out pretty good. All right. All right, cool. All right, let's see here. And let's see what else we got. He's just breathing. It's like a breathing idol. And this is pretty good too. So we might use maybe an idol from this as well. All right. Okay, so let's take a look at the characters that they come with, and you can use these characters, of course, for your project. These guys are pretty awesome, and here are their materials. It's probably just something to do with URP. I don't know, let's change it to that. That could work. And this is unlit, so I don't think it has shaders or anything, I guess, in that case. There you go. Yeah. So that works out pretty good. That's fine. That's what they kind of look like, and that's actually pretty good. All right, cool. So our goal here, I don't want to belabor that, but our goal, of course, is to get this guy crawling. So we need to find the crawling animations, and so let's see if we can find them. I'm gonna change this folder to that, and let's see if we just type in crawl. Do we get crawl? There we go. So we got female crawl. What does that look like? It's pretty cool. She has a gun. That's fine. And then we have male crawl. Almost look the same. All right, cool. So that could work. That's not a bad looking crawl. we can go that route. Let's see, we have all types of other things, and so we'll probably utilize a lot of this here. Okay, all right. All right. So the first thing we want to do is, of course, go back to our mechanics. We're going to right click and we're going to go to get a game creator and go to trigger, and we're going to type in the name crawl. Okay. And let's see here. So we have crawl. And so now we got to think to ourselves, how do we want to crawl? So I think I'll just use the control key for the crawl, and let's go ahead and do that. So I will change this trigger to input on key down. On key down, we want to use the control key. So let's see if we can get that. How does they find the control key? I think it's probably like left control, huh? Left shift, left control. There we go. Boom. All right, so we have the left control key there. All right, that's great. And so now that that is there, what do we want to do? When this key is down, we need to tell the character whether or not they're kind of crawling. They need to know if they're already crawling, because we want to make them change from, I guess, one state to a different state. And so the first thing I already know what we need to do is go to game creator and go to preferences. And I'm going to go to variables. And if you're not familiar with this, this is very powerful. Variables are great anyway in all programming languages, but variables is great because it allows you to do some cool stuff. But in this case, we're going to kind of keep track of whether or not we're crawling, right? So we're going to put is crawling right there. And we're going to simply set is crawling to be a type of bool, which is true or false. And so the default state is going to be false. And when we actually hit the button, a condition is going to check, hey, you hit this button. It's going to check, are you crawling? If you're not crawling, set it to crawling and start crawling. Okay. And then when you're crawling and you hit the button, it's going to say, are you crawling? You are crawling? Oh, you want to get up. So it's going to change it to false. Okay. So that's how we're going to approach it. I'm sure there's probably other ways to go about this, but that's that's how I think about it. So let's see how easy it is to implement. So we have our variable is crawling, true or false, right? So let's go ahead and we can close this or move it if you have another screen. All right, and so now instead of an action, what I want to do is create a condition slot. And that's going to create that condition, which then in turns create an additional game object with a conditions component added to it, right? So now the condition is basically saying add a clause. The clause is if is crawling, our variable, and it's a bool, right? And we're going to select from our global variable. If is crawling is true, or if it's false, then we want to start crawling. That's what the goal here is. Okay. That's literally what we want to do. Okay. And then this here where it says else, if it's not true, then we want to not crawl. But anyway, let's just do one step at a time. So we have, if this is false, then let's start crawling, and then we're going to set it to true. That's going to be the last step in the set of actions. So we're going to create some actions. Okay, now it created actions, and then as you can see, it created a child of conditions. And you can either add an action here, or you can simply go here and they'll show up on the other side as well. So now that we hit this button, what do we want to do? We want to change this player's animation, or we want to change their state. And there's a few things we need to think about here. So, and this is why being organized is important. So the first thing I'm going to do is move this everyday pack into that 3D or into my animations folder. Because I have no intentions of updating it. I have no intentions of changing this at this point. So I'm going to move everyday motion pack into the animations folder. Okay. So now when we go into animations, we have this everyday pack animations, Mixamo animations. That's the idea. Okay. All right, great. Okay, next we have prefabs and we have characters and we have our hero. Now, we have not created a prefab yet. We haven't created a player. The idea I would normally do is take this and drag it into here to create the prefab. And so wherever we put this player in any scene, it will carry over. But for now, what I'm going to do is use this space to keep track of our states. Okay, now I'm going to click on player. And in here, the player has a default state already set up, and it's pretty much the basics of what we have. But what we're going to do is I'm going to right click inside this hero folder, and I'm going to go create game creator character, and we're going to do locomotion state. Okay. And then this locomotion state, I'm going to rename it. Okay. So I'm going to rename this to crawl locomotion state. Fair enough. And then what I can do is on here, when you select it, this is all the animations that your game creator character has assigned to them. You don't typically play with the mechanism, stuff. You just use this the way it's been designed. Now, if you're more advanced, of course, you're going to kind of play with this and go beyond that. But if you just want to use what is already there, it already offers so much. So what we want to do is change a few things. We want to change the idle, and we want to change the forward or the run forward or the walk forward. And we're going to change those to a crawl state. Okay, so what I'm going to do is select this here, and we're going to search for crawl. And let's see here. So it looks like we have female crawl there, and I'm going to put it also for, let's see, where is it, like run forward. And I'm just going to do crawl. Now, I wonder if they have an idle crawl. Let's see if they have an idle. They have an idle crouch, so we could do that. Let's see. Not sure if that's what we want, but that's fine. Let's see what else they have. Strafing, pickup. Okay, so let's leave it for now. Let's just leave this. We'll do forward. We're going to do crawl for this one as well. I have a sneaking suspicion, though, that the crawl, did I do female? I'm gonna do male for this one. I have a sneaking suspicion it's just gonna loop when he's in idle, but that's fine for now. That's not a big deal. We're just trying to see how this works. All right, so we have a condition and we set up a crawl local animation. So let's go ahead and do an an action here. And what we're gonna do is go to character. Let's see, animation. No, we don't want to do that. We want to do character. And what we want to do is change the state. And let's see, character state. And we want to change the state to a new state. And it's going to be a crawl state, right? Looks like we have crouch and stuff too. No, I think those are probably built in, if I'm not mistaken. Game creator crouch. So you could use those. That's fine. But we're going to use this one. And let's leave this stuff like this. And let's just get an idea of what's going to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and have that action work. So the idea is when I hit the left control key, it's going to check to see if this is false, and it will be true. So if that's true, then it's going to take us here. And then the next action we want to do is set the variable, set that variable is crawling to true, because that would be true. Okay. All right. So let's see how that works. Hit play. All right, cool. So we have our player, and I'm going to hit the control key on the keyboard. All right, great. And so now we're crawling. All right, cool. So it's working. Of course, it's got some weirdness here, so we'll try to get that fixed up here. But what that's doing is it's going into like an idle state, and now we're crawling. And that makes sense, and that's great. And so obviously when you're crawling, you wouldn't want to move that fast, so you would change all types of things in the crawl action. So the goal is that you would want to go slower. So when you stop, that's kind of like our crawl. And we don't want this because this idle isn't what we want. So we'll have to work with that. Let's see what we can do. So let's see. So the first thing we probably want to do is go ahead and get the crawl motion put into most of these. Mainly the areas where it says like walk or run. Those are going to be the main ones, because what we'll do is we'll make it so that you can't jump. So these animations here for jumping or any of that won't be necessary. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and go to actions and click on my crawl state animation locomotion, and I'll select this and then I'll lock this just so it doesn't change. And I'm just going to go ahead and move this animation into here. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'll go move that there. And actually I want to check something else really quick. I was curious. I never used the enter and exit clip, so I wonder what that is. Not sure what that does, but let's just take a look and see what that does. I'm going to turn these off and I'll leave that one on. That's fine. So I turn off the idle one. Now let's just see what that one does, because I'm not sure. I never used that before. I'm going to do it, and it just enters. So it's simply an entered animation. So now we're currently in that okay state, and so that's all that is an enter. So if we had an animation for him to like get down on his knees and then go into that animation, that would be super useful. Unfortunately, we do not, at least not yet. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn that off. All right, cool. So we'll just keep it simple. I don't want to overcomplicate it. So we'll go crawl, and I'll select the one that says at move crawl. Let me see. This one is another one that I think I duplicated. Let me see. And then this is, I'll just select the same one. Duplication. And let me just see what that does. Okay, cool. And let's see. See, like his body's kind of bent and his legs are kind of up. We could probably change that a little bit to bring his body down. We can do that by going to not the animation that is on the character, but the one that I'm duplicated. I'm not sure. I must have. Let's see here. So if you need to duplicate it, you would just select this and do a Control D, and it would duplicate the animation and it'll automatically put it outside of it. I have a video. I have a link to that video on how to do that sort of stuff. But here it is here, and then when you select this, it didn't give you options to control some of these things. So if I wanted to change the height of the root, so for instance, if I want to go like a 0.1, go down some on that animation, let's take a look and see if his body is still kind of floating. So I'll look at that, and so he's a little lower onto the ground, and that's okay. That's not too bad. We can do 0.5. It goes a little lower there. This might be too low, but you can see how that may be able to work a little bit. We'll deal with the getting up thing in a second, but that could work. It's not terrible. We can also do center of mask. I'm not sure if that changes anything. We can also change the body orientation to original. Let's see if that is keeping with it. So we can hit play, and let's see if that makes any difference. Okay, so it looks like he's crawling. That's fine. I'll just probably keep it at like a 0.1 for now. Okay, cool. And let's just go back to it. And so what we want to do is go ahead and just simply put these move crawls on all of the ones, generally speaking, all the ones that are like forward and running and changing, that type of stuff. So I'm going to take this move crawl and pop it in each one. And what I'll do is go ahead and pause the video, and I will do that quickly. It may take a little bit of time. Alright, so what I did was I went in and filled these all in with move crawl. So pretty much anything that's idle jumping, any of those things, I'll just do move crawl. Now, in terms of jumping, you don't really have to change that. The idea is, say for instance, if we did remove that, that's fine, because the goal, we're not going to jump anyway while you're idle. It's just basically, we're going to turn off the ability to jump when you're in the idle state, in the crawl state. Okay, but I did went ahead and just put move crawl there. So let's push play and see if that gives us a little better look in terms of when we're transitioning from left to right. So if you notice, it's a little smoother. There's not, when you turn left and go forward, you don't get up, or you don't see any hesitation there. The only downside though is that we still have a idle state and he's just moving in place, and it's cute, but it's not what we need. So what we want to do is find some type of animation where he's just kind of standing, or standing there. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and go to my idle for this, and I'm going to type in crouch. And it looks like we have a character crouch idle here, and this one was part of the game creator animation, so that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and use that, and let's see what that looks like when he's in the idle state now, when he's crouched. Okay, so right now we're in our regular run walk state, and as soon as I hit the control key, we go down, and that's pretty cool. It works. We could probably play with some of those things to kind of fix up a few things here. I would like to mess with that a little bit, but generally speaking, that is effective. And then I move, he goes into a walk state, a crawl state, and then when he gets up, he kind of does that. So I think that is good for this. I don't want to belabor this too much. I will take a quick look at this one just to see if there's any way that we can quickly manage that. So let's go ahead and see, let's see where that's at. So right now, this is an animation that's part of this crouch. Not exactly sure. Let's see. I could probably mess with some of the offset of it. I may not, because it just may not be worth the effort. It'd probably be better for me to just simply get a crouch animation from somewhere, as opposed to changing a built-in animation that was provided. So that's what I probably would do. I'm not sure if there is any type of other idle animation that could work for this. Let's see, we have idle and drunk, damage, meditate, breathe, idle on floor. That could work. Let's see, that may be laying down though. Let's see, panting, idle, strafing, pick up, pant. Let's see, I'll do idle on floor. I believe though that's something else. Honestly, I think that is going to be laying on the floor, as opposed to like a crawl. Oh, that could work. Yeah, that's fine. That works for me. Yeah, that will work just fine. All right, great. So this could work. Laying on the floor, you go from that to that. And I think that will work for us. So if you're happy with it, I'll be happy with it. And as we go in the final days of this series, we can do polishing and start working with things once everything's in place. But I think that's a pretty good look for us. So we changed that idle. That works out pretty good. All right, great. So the next thing we need to take a look at is, so we know that when we have our conditions, we're going compare, and if this is false, we're changing the state of the player to that, and we are now assigning this to true. Now, if we need to do it the other way around, so if this is this, do this, and then we need to do another clause if the variable bool is true. So if it's true, so if crawling is true, then we create some more actions, and I'm gonna go ahead and double click to get us into it. Then that action, what we need to do is reset the player back to default. So what we want to do is say, let's see here, property, let's see here. And what we probably want to do is change the player state. So what we want to do is character, and we want to change the state. So change the character state. Now, what we want to do now, instead of change, is reset the character state back to this. And then we want to go and set the variable is crawling back to false, because now we shouldn't be crawling anymore. So let's see if this works the way we intended it to work. All right, I'm gonna hit play. All right, so we have our guy and we hit the control key. He goes down, and if I hit the control key again, he goes back up. And that's textbook, pretty much basic, and it works. It's not the prettiest, but it's effective in terms of trying to get the character, doing what we need to do. Now, as you can see, he's jumping, and we don't want him to be able to jump when he's in the crawl state. So now we are going to affect a few of those things. So I'm going to hit play. All right, so this action is what? This is the crawl, and this is not crawling, right? So we can rename these. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to go actions is crawling. So we can go crawling true, right? Crawling true. And then we can do this one to be crawling false. Okay. And it's important to kind of keep these things as organized as possible so you know exactly what you're looking at. Okay. So we're going to do crawling true. So when we're crawling, there's going to be a few things we need to set. The first thing is we don't want to be able to jump. Okay, so there's an action, I believe, for that. So what we want to do is go to character and go to change property. And I think we want to do can jump to false. And so when we want to put it at the very beginning, because that's kind of one of the first things we want to do. And I'll just put can jump to false. Okay, and so let's go ahead and see if that actually works. All right, so I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna try to jump, and we can't jump, and that's because we're now set. We can't jump, and that's perfect. That's what we want. We don't want to be able to jump. Okay, all right. And so what I want to do is go back to standing, but if you notice, we can't jump here either. So what we want to do is now, when it's false, we want to be able to jump. Okay, so we want to just go character and then property, and then we want to do can jump, and now we want to be able to jump when we go back into that mode. And so just to confirm that that is working, we always want to check. We never want to assume. Can't jump. Now we can jump. Great. Perfect. Can't jump. Right. Exactly. All right. Awesome. And if you say we're on the side here and we know we can't jump, perfect. That's working just good enough for me. All right. So some other things we want to think about. So what you probably don't see, and let's take a look at that. What I'm gonna do is move my game scene here, and I want to select the player, and I want to take a look at the player, and I'm gonna go into crawl. So while I'm crawling, if you notice here, this is our collider, this here, and we need that to shrink. And the reason that is because, let's go ahead and do that. The reason that is, and I'll go ahead and create something. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this here. I'll bring it up some. Actually, I'm gonna pop this up like that. And then I'm going to do this. And then I'm going to make it smaller like that. Okay, great. All right, so we need to be able to get underneath this, and let's go ahead and see if we can do it. And if you probably noticed, you're not going to be able to because while we are small enough to get under it, that collider is not, and we need to shrink that collider before we go under this. So to do that, again, we need to go back to what do we want to do when we're crawling, okay? So what I'm going to do is go to my action. When crawling is true, these are things I want to do. That actually rhymed. I didn't mean it to rhyme, but you know, it is what it is. All right, cool. So I'm going to go to character, and then I want to change a property. I think it's a property, and let's change the height of the character. And so right now, I believe the base character height is actually on this component, the player component, and it's going to be inside here. And there's usually a height set. And I'm not exactly sure where it's at. It may actually be part of the character controller. All right, so it says 1.5. And so what we want to do is change this to be maybe like 0.5, right? So that's when we are like that. Okay, and I'm gonna hit play, and I could have already done another thing. I could have added it back to our when we're false, but I just want to get to show you. So now we're low, and now we're able to crawl underneath, and we can keep crawling if necessary. Okay, all right, great. And so we could do that. All right, perfect. And so now what we don't want, and we'll play with that later, but we don't want to be able to get up when we're underneath an object, and we will have to create some triggers to disable certain things, and I'll show you that here in a second. But for now, we're able to crawl underneath an object. So the next thing we want to do is now take this player height and go back to crawling is false, and chain and paste that in there, and we want to set the height back to its default, which is 1.5. So I'm going to go ahead and put that here, and I'll do that same thing here. So I wanted to put that in the beginning of the action. So now when I go back here, let's take a look. I'm going to take the game view and move it over, and then I'm going to select the player so we can see it change. So let's see if it's working properly. So I'm going to take my character, go down. You notice that the collider is smaller, and if we go up, it's now bigger. And so that's the type of function that we want. But what we don't want is to be able to, you know, stand up when we're underneath, because as you can see, I'm stuck. And that's kind of not what we want. So to kind of remedy that, a good way to maybe approach this is to disable the ability to trigger your crawl, right? So one way to do that is to create a trigger. So I'm going to create a shape, and this shape is going to be our trigger. So I'm going to turn this into a trigger. And what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and turn on ProGrids and turn on the snapping. And go ahead and do that. So basically, if we were in a level right now, and let me just go ahead and make that like that. So if we were in a level right now, and ideally I'm thinking, okay, cool, I want this guy to be able to go underneath this bridge or whatever this is in the game, but I don't want him to be able to stand up when he's under there. We can basically create a trigger that basically says, hey, when you're under here, you're not able to stand up. So that's what we're going to do. All right, so I'm going to take this and create that trigger. Okay, and that's all that's going to do. So when we're inside this trigger, the goal here is to basically disable the ability to stand up. Okay, all right, and I'll go ahead and go turn this off, and then I'm gonna make this pretty much the same size as this. All right, that looks close enough. All right, great. So for an object like this, all we need to do is on this cube, on this trigger, I'm going to set a, let's see, game creator, a trigger, and then I'm going to say object on player enter. We need to do one or two things, right? So we need to basically set active one of the player's conditions. So we need to do that. Let's see here. So we could basically say when the player is crawling, when the player is inside here, turn off his crawl, his ability to crawl, right? Let's see here. And we can do another trigger where we do this when the player exits this collider. We do another one, and we can do basically another set active, and we can basically say turn it back on. Okay, and that's pretty much all that's doing. And that's really just for this scene for now, just so that we can see that this is working. So and let's see if it is indeed working. All right, cool. So let's check that out. So we have our player, we're gonna go into crawl state, and now we're under here. I'm gonna hit the crawl, and it looks like it is not affecting our player because it's not actually turning off our crawl, as you can see. So let's just make sure our actions are working properly. And on player enter, on player exit, and then we have on player enter, disable game object trigger crawl. That's what we're trying to do. And I have a feeling I know exactly what the issue is because even though we marked this object as a trigger, the actual trigger is this game object right here that we do not see. And so the only real reason why you would even need this is for visualization purposes. But the truth is, yeah, I forgot. What you need to do is literally convert this maybe into a box collider, like so. And then we'll just simply like do this, just like so. Now we could probably get away with turning that into a trigger by actually putting the trigger on the actual cube. But for now, I'm just going to verify that this is working. So let's go ahead and do this where we're going to do like that. So now let's see if this works. All right, so we're going to go up, we're going to start crawling. And of course that object is not letting us through because something that component is still marked as a collider. So what we're going to do is just mark that as a trigger. And I'm going to go ahead and remove this sphere collider because we don't need it. And then I'll just move this up, and then move up. Cool. All right, so that should work. All right, let's try it again. Go down. Cool. And now, as you can see, my crawl is turned off and I cannot do it. And the minute I come out, I can do it. So that is a good way to maybe approach the crawl function. All right, cool. All right, so we got our crawl going and we got our little guy going. So we were trying to see how that works. And now we're not going to play with the camera just yet, but for now we're just focusing on how the character kind of is interacting with the world. Of course, he don't have to crawl. He can just jump right over it. So, cool. All right, so I think that's pretty much it for our crawl. I can't think of anything else we would necessarily need to do for this to work. Of course, if we had more animations and more access to different things, we could. But, you know, now that I'm thinking about it, there is something else we definitely want to mess with, and that's the speed. So before I let you go, let's go ahead and take a look at the speed, shall we? So we have that working, and that's pretty cool. What we want to do is take a look at our crawl again. And let's take a look at the different actions. So crawling is true. Again, this goes back to our changing the height. So going through all of this, what do you think we should do, right? We change the height when we're crawling. We change the height back when we're not crawling. So in terms of speed, we got to do the same thing. We got to go to add action. We have to go down to the character, go to the character property, and we want to set the run speed. So in this case, crawling is much slower than even probably 2. So let's go to something like 0.5, right? So we're going to set this guy's walk speed to 0.5. I'm going to put it somewhere at the top. That's fine. I'm going to go ahead and hit copy and then go to my FOSS action, and I'm going to paste it, and then we're going to set our run speed back to whatever the base is. We have to find out what that base value is. I believe it's I think it's 4. So whatever that is, we can do that. And just keep in mind, we can actually create a variable and just base it that way. But for now, we're just going to keep things to basic values, because this overall game is meant to be simple with a little bit of complexity, but just keep it simple. So let's see if our speed and everything works properly. All right, so I'm going to select my player, and I want to just take a quick look at my run speed. So my run speed is defaulted to 4, so that's great. So we're going to leave that at 4, so great. All right, so now we're walking, and that's how fast we're walking. But when we crouch, that's right, that feels better, right? Because now we're crawling, and if I get up, we should be able to run, and now that feels so much better. It feels like we're actually crawling. You shouldn't be able to move as fast as you do when you're crawling. And so now our little guy is going to crawl wherever he needs to go, because it looks pretty good. And of course we'll deal with the camera, and now we're here, and now we're good. All right, perfect. Now there we go. Nice. And it looks like, of course, I'm probably touching, because I can't crawl up here, and it's probably because the collider that I'm in is affecting it, of course, because I'm probably touching it. I'm in it somehow. That's fine. But as you notice, that looks great, and we can speed it up if you want to. As you notice, if you run and change, you can change the run speed. So you got to start thinking about this. So now we're crawling, but if I hit that shift key while I'm crawling, look at that. Now we're running and crawling, and we don't want that, do we? So what we want to do, and now our speed is set like this. So what we want to do is disable the run function while we're crawling. So let's do that. So I'm going to now go to my add action, and I'm going to set active or disable the run trigger. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to set it to false, so it'll turn off when I'm in this position. And I'll just move it up here. And you don't have to always move it up here, but depending on what we're doing, having certain actions happen before other actions will make a difference. But right now, it may not make a huge difference, but just be mindful of what comes before another thing. So I'm going to go ahead and set this there. I'm going to copy that action, go here, and then I'm going to paste it, and then I'm going to make it so that our trigger turns back on, and I'm just going to move it back up to the top. So because in this case, I don't want to overcomplicate it, but I don't want to be able to run while I'm crawling. So let's see here. All right, so let's go ahead and crawl. And now if I hit the shift key too many times, hit the shift key, I can't run. And if I get up, now I can run. And that's exactly what we want. Okay. And now this opens up other opportunities, right? But what if you did want to crawl faster? You could basically create an additional trigger for running. Let's do it right now. So for instance, we could basically copy and paste this trigger and make it active when you are crawling, so that it is active when you're crawling. And so instead of the run speed being set to 6, maybe the run speed, instead of being 0.5, like right now your run speed or your moving speed is set to 0.5. Maybe your crawl speed can be 0.7. And so you move just a little bit faster when you're crawling. And that's something that we can do. And let's just go ahead and take a look at doing that. Why not, right? It may add a little bit of complexity, but let's do it. So I'm going to do a Control D in this area. And then I'm going to do crawl run. And I didn't plan on this, but that's what this is all about. So we have crawl and then we have crawl run. Okay. All right. So we got to think this through because certain things can't be active when other things are active. Okay. So we already know that we're turning off the basic run when we're crawling, but we need to turn off we need to set active crawl. Let's see here. So I'm going to hit play and see what is going to happen here. All right, so right now both run and crawl is active, right? So what we need to do is basically make crawl inactive right off the bat. We're just going to make it say it doesn't exist, but it will exist when crawling is true. So what I can do is set this active, this crawl run active when we're crawling. Okay. And I'll go ahead and move this to somewhere at the top. It's getting longer, and that's typically going to happen. You can always collapse these if once you're done messing with them. So it makes that much nicer. And then what I can do is copy this, and when crawling is false, we can set it to be inactive, right? And the way I approach this is really to help understand how we're doing things. So we can set it to be inactive. All right, so now what we do is hit play. And so now we can run, and when we hit crawl, our crawl is active, and if I hit the space key, with a space, the shift key, let's see if he moves faster. Too fast because we need to change the speed. So let's go ahead and do that. So our crawl set run speed here. We're going to set this to, what was the crawling? The crawling was set to, it was like 0.5. So let's not overdo it. Let's do like 0.7, right? Add a couple. And then we'll set this walk speed. This will be back to 0.5. Okay. All right, great. So that will be 0.7 and that's 0.5, and that should be good to go. All right, so I'm going to hit play and let's take a look and see if that works. All right, so we can run. That's great. I'm going to go back and crawl. We're crawling. Looks nice. It feels good. And if I hit the space, the shift key, you notice it's a little faster. It's not that much faster. It's a little faster. And that's all we really want. That's all we really want. We just want to make it a little faster. And let's select the player and see, confirm that it is changing. So right now you see my run speed is at 0.5. So what I'm do is go ahead and do this, and you notice it's changing. And 0.7 is not that much faster, but we can change that. That's the beauty of it. So what I can do is set the run speed to be maybe 0.1, or it could be 1. That might be a little too fast. I don't know. Let's see. Let's see how that feels. So we're here. That's going to be 0.5, and then that's a little faster. All right, great. And that looks pretty good. And they both feel great. And it moves a little faster. Say you're being chased, you just want to get to somewhere a little quicker. But it's just added functionality to our player. And while it's not necessary, it gives us a little bit of more mobility, right? All right, cool. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed that, getting our character crawling and moving and going. and you can already see how we're going about this. So in the next video, I'll probably take a look at a little bit of my run just to fix a couple things. I want to change the animation for that. But other than that, I'll see you guys in the next video. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. For the next set of videos, I'll be releasing one every day at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. So to stay up to date on the latest 3D platforming tutorial, feel free to subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to support, you can find me on Patreon, or of course you can hit me up on Discord. I like to talk about whatever project you guys are working on. Of course, thanks for hanging with me. Your support is always appreciated. As always, remember, never give up and keep moving forward. Peace.